Hello, today I got another crabbing video today. We will be doing a crab beacon inside of a hell. I got a super for this task, and they are as awesome as the revelation is. A super carrier is a much better asset for this job. They're about 6 billionist compared to 40 billion-ish for proper fit, refits, drones, the nester, all that. You're going to be running around 40 billion-ish for a well-fit super. Without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the hell. I've done a couple things here. This isn't my first crab today, but I've done a couple things here. While I'm looking at the beacon, I have a mobile depot out, and I can refit if neutrals show up. I'm near max tank fit. I only have to swap one module, and this is how I like to crab, because I don't feel like 100% efficiency is required to crab effectively. So I like to just have a little bit off of max tank, but some people will go for like just max DPS. They'll change all their lows, they'll change their mids to drone navigations and drone tracking links, and they'll go full crab, if that makes sense. But I am liable to lapses of attention, and I'm aware of this, so I fly a little bit on the safe side, so to speak. Anyways, we have a hell here. There are 4 super carriers that are common, and then there's the 2 faction ones, the Revenant and the Vendetta. But of the 4, the 4 main ones, there's the Aeon and the Wyvern for Amar and Glente. Those 2 have additional tank on them, whereas the Nyx and the Hell have additional DPS. So they have bonuses to the DPS on their drones, which is huge. They end up doing a lot of DPS. So they're kind of nutty when we compare them to something like a Revelation. That Revelation fit that we had yesterday does roughly 3,000 DPS, whereas this Hell will do 7,000. So it's a little over double. And then the site is completely trivialized by the fact that these ships just have so much EHP that you just don't bother repping during the site. And if you need to, you go tether at the end of the site for the Nyx. I think the Hell is the king of crabs, because it has a strong passive regen, and with the passive regen, it never goes below 80% when running crabs, and you end up just hanging out at 80% shields without needing to repair, which is really nice. And then the drones not only have additional DPS, they also fly faster, whereas the Nyx has more durable drones. So you either have faster drones or more durable drones if you pick Nyx between Hell, and the Hell has the passive regen because it's got a massive shield tank on it. That being said, it doesn't matter much when your speed is capped by, things respawning, and the Iskenauer doing them faster isn't a big deal. So pick a super, have fun, is what I say. It doesn't really matter a whole lot which one you pick. The Aeon and the Wyvern are super tanky and incredibly difficult to kill, whereas the Hell and the Nyx will kill NPCs a little bit faster. So I have a preference towards the Hell for crabbing, simply because it has passive regen on the shields. And you'll see here, I have no repper fit at all. So that's why I have a strong preference towards the Hell. So now that the site is here, I'm going to leave my mobile depot out. Actually, no, we're going to scoop it up. And we would deploy and scoop that up when we're anchoring the beacon, because while we are stuck with the beacon, we want to have as much tank as possible. So we would want to refit between beacons, if that makes sense. Anyways, the first couple guys are showing up here. It is worth activating the NSA to lock them a little bit faster. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to go ahead and launch our fighters. And just fire. Bye, NPC! And that's how this goes. So there was recently a change where the NPCs will actually aggro your drones. And when they do aggro your drones, there's a chance that they just alpha them off grid because of the sheer amount of damage that the NPCs do. To counter this, you notice I didn't launch my fighters right away. I waited a moment in order for them to do something. And then also, when they're stationary, I have a feeling that they're more likely to get shot. So I just tell them to orbit my beacon. If you're flying a super, I would be under the assumption you know your hotkeys, you know how to fly your drones. But for those unfamiliar, there's a little blue bubble around each of my selected drones here. My NSA is still up, and I have set auto repeat off. But basically, these little blue circles are my selected things. It turns into kind of an RTS. And you can select your carrier as well. And then the drones actually fly just like a ship. So they have F123, so F123, and then they behave and fire and follow hotkeys. So when you tell them to fire at something, they'll start flying. You see, we get an orbit. We have our tactical overlay open. We can kind of see what they're doing. W is orbit, Q is approach. You give them commands just like you would with a, just like you would as if you were flying a ship, but with hotkeys. So double clicking in space will also make them fly around too. So like if you double click in space, they'll go in that direction. They behave just like regular ships, so you babysit them just like regular ships. So I'm going to have them come back and orbit the beacon. This also kind of keeps them close to my hell. And when they're close to the hell, you can pull them in fast and warp off should neutral show up. Which gives you a little bit of additional safety rather than having them, 30 kilometers off. Because when you warp off, the drone NPCs will kill your drones. And if somebody shows up on the crab beacon and decides to start shooting your drones, they're going to lose your drones. And they're not cheap. A single Amitat is worth roughly 30 million ISK, and we have 24 on field, with the Templars, which are worth 10 to 15 million ISK a piece, and there's 9 in that tube. And just kind of up to you how you prefer to fly them. You can decide to go, instead of Amitats, you can run 2 Templars and 3 Amitats, or you can run 3 Templars and 2 Amitats, depending on what you're doing. But you cannot use in a super more than four tubes of heavies or 3 tubes of lights. Those are your limitations. And then on top of that, they're not allowed to use support fighters. So you cannot throw sirens, you can't throw the ECM boys, you can't throw any of those. So you are literally stuck with your 2 drones, the heavies and the lights. And there's 2 variants of lights and there's 2 variants of heavies. So right now we're using the anti-subcap heavies, which are referred to as AoE bombers, I think is what they call them. I don't remember. Let's go into my fighter bay here. But they have a little thing. They're called AoE bombers, and the Malice are the anti-capital. So if we show info on these, they're referred to as heavy fighters, or the role is heavy attack. And these are the torpedo, we call them torpedo bombers. They do insane damage, and I will have a video demonstrating that soon. As a teaser, that's likely to come out tomorrow, we got a super carrier spawn in a belt. So we got a sentient super carrier to spawn. It didn't drop anything good, but it was pretty cool to kill. And I got a little short video for you guys on that one that is coming up in the future. And we got to showcase the anti-capital drones. And you see here, I was in my inventory, so I have my ship selected. You hold control, you can select your drones. There's also assignable hotkeys, which are kind of a pain, but I believe I have mine set to M. I did it somewhere, I'm not sure when I did. I can't remember where I set my hotkeys to. I should relearn that and retrain myself. But you can set hotkeys to select, all your light fighters, all your heavy fighters, and then also to select all fighters and deselect all fighters. You can even set hotkeys for your individual tubes. They're over there in the options. So the customizability for the control of your selection is there. You just have to set it up. And I'm slow, so I just kind of click on the things, and I end up doing a-okay. But yeah, this supers just absolutely trivialize these sites. They make really good income because they clear them very quickly, and you can see we're killing even the biggest things almost instantaneously. These towers are kind of annoying if you don't have a tracking computer, and double tracking computer allows you to kind of reach them right away, regardless of where your fighters are. But in the effort to have a bigger tank, since I am recording a video and all that, paying more attention, I'm just running one computer. I could take off an extender for a second computer, but I'm okay without doing that. So the cool thing about the Amitats is that they have long range attacks. They reach out like 50 kilometers and they do good damage. So these Taus out here are they're pretty simple to deal with. We're gonna go ahead and as soon as that dies, I'm gonna tell all my ships to orbit the beacon. We'll get a time. So as you can see, this is happening a lot faster than the previous ones. We're just gonna go ahead and pulse our network sensor array, and I'm gonna fight my cat that's trying to push her hand against my mouse button because it's cat versus hateless here in this household. Because Nika is in love with us. Look at her. She's up on my desk, like pushing the back of her head against my mouse. It's so adorable. I need to get a camera like right here and point it right here so we can see what she's doing. But she's such a good cat, and I love my cat, and she's amazing. I have two of them. The other one's chilling right there. I don't know if you can see her. She's just out of frame. But they're happy cats. Anyways, yeah, this is a grab and a super. There's not really much to say. The drones just nuke the drones, and we make money. It's really that easy. The problem with the super and the reason why I'm so excited about the rev and how the rev works is that the revelation doesn't kill things like almost instantaneously. So this timer goes down a little bit slower since we spend more time with stuff on grid. And because the timer goes down slower, we end up with bigger ticks. However, clearing the beacon itself gives more chance it drops from the beacon. And the beacon is somewhat profitable. So it's kind of a question as to what's better, to extend the beacon or run the crab as quick as possible. I guess that a BRM is a factor as well. But this video is likely to be around 20 minutes long. 20 to 30 minutes long, whereas the last one was almost 50 with running the crab. Hells just do it faster. They get to bring their full DPS with max tank at the same time. You can put power diagnostics in the lows to get a little bit more tank out of them, but it kind of nerfs the fighters, and your fighters are really useful when removing DPS, so it's kind of negligible whether or not it's actually worth it. Yeah, but also in your fighter tubes, you do want to keep a few. I gotta give my cat some love here. She is really, really wanting it. But in your fighter bay, you want to carry at least 3 flights of your standard light drones, and then 3 full flights of SSFs. We call them SSFs. They're the space superiority fighters. That's why they're called SSFs. But they will kill things like sabers really quickly, because the only 2 things holding you on grid is going to be like 20 plus people with their scrams or whatnot, because you have plus 25 warp core strength. By the way, that's a thing. I don't want to give you guys my exact stats, but for every level that you get on your skill, you get plus 5 chip core strength. So you need to have at least 25 points of scram, or 26 points of scram, to hold a super down. The other thing that holds a super down is a bubble. So if you can kill the thing that's bubbling you, aka the saber or the point of fax or whatever it is. Sorry, it's not point of fax. It's maybe it is point of fax. Anyways, I can't remember. But the interdictors will hold you, and so will Hicks. However, you can nuke a Hick with these Amitats. Will kill a heavy interdiction cruiser such as an Onyx. So they're very difficult to hold on to, if that makes sense. And they can almost always warp off, assuming they didn't just activate their NSA, which we're doing here. So like they'll feed you kills, and you're like almost guaranteed to kill something almost regardless of the circumstance, as long as you're carrying the right fighters and know how to use them. But you do want to not take the engagement when you're PvE fit, if that makes sense. And since we have no tackle, there's no reasonable way to put tackle on a carrier. It doesn't make sense to take a fight because you can't actually hold anything. You can push things off of you, but you can't actually like hold something on grid with you, if that makes sense. So you're not going to get kills. You'll just push them away. So supers aren't really afraid of small gangs roaming around in space. They're really afraid of the big things, whereas a revelation is going to be afraid of like everything, because if it gets tackled by something that it can't track, it can't go anywhere, right? And a super can be made to hit just about anything. They have surprisingly good damage application with SSFs and fighters that it's actually kind of surprising how well they do. Yeah. So yeah, that's why supers are like the ideal ship for this. That, and then when help arrives, they're not siege, and since they're not siege, they can receive brew mode aid, meaning the second that the Sino comes in or the Sino is lit, we have faxes repping and all that. So they're significantly safer to run than a Revelation or Phoenix because they're just harder to kill. They have a lot more health. They can get fax reps right away, and they are just more difficult to kill. Just the insane amount of EHP and DPS they have, it's a lot on field. Yeah, that's why we like supers for crabbing. They're just really good at it, and I misclicked here. So these guys are yellow boxing. I'm going to make sure that they red box me, and it looks like they're just fresh spawns. Tell these guys to start going closer. There we go. Keep the drones moving here. And as you can see, the damage application is good versus almost every single target. They don't these Amitats don't apply very well versus the Mu, but they apply well enough that you're not really worried about it. And the Mu is that frigate that we struggle with on the carrier, or on the Revelation, because it's really difficult to track. It's a little frigate. But these guys, when they get out on their orbit, they have relatively low transversal. They can deal with it, and you don't need to have a smart bomb or anything, because the fighters have got it. So here we go. We're already halfway done here, or almost halfway done. We're at 6 minutes already. As you can see, this progression is going a lot faster with the super, and you'll end up running more crabs if you run a super over running a thingy-maduple, a dreadnought. I still do have my dreadnought, and it has been running crabs. Since I made that video yesterday with my first time running with the Revelation, I probably ran 4 or 5 more crabs with that Revelation, and it is astoundingly good. I can show you some ticks here. Let's show you guys. So we got 114, 51. This is a bounty payout. 79 for the first one when we're anchored. That's a payout from the thing. We got another 113. There's another 117, but you get the small ticks between the crabs. That's just kind of standard. I'm gonna ruin the DVM in this system. So this system has a 150 DVM, and by the time you guys see this video, I will put in the comments what it is. But I've been running them pretty hard in this system because we freshly got set up in the system, and it's a really high DVM. I'm really enjoying the high bounty risk modifiers that we got in some systems, and it's been fantastic. I'm very fortunate to be in a space where crabbing such as this is actually possible, because a lot of people they get really happy about 100, and I'm over here being pampered with like 140s and stuff. So I consider myself fortunate in that regard. Yeah, so the damage is nuts. You can see we're hitting for like 3,000 times 4. That's 12,000 damage a shot, and it's just kind of insane. Pretty much regardless of how you fit these things, they are capable of tanking a lot. A naked fit, I believe, is like 3 or 4 million EHP. Something that has like a really high focus on DPS can easily have like 12 million EHP. And then a proper fit can have significantly more. I'm not going to give you the exact numbers of our Doctrine fit or anything like that. But if you open up the simulator and play with them a little bit, they can get really tanky. And I'm going to give you a hint. Command bursts are a thing on these, because they can use... they receive command burst strength based on the race, just like the command ships. And they actually get 2% per level. So a max skilled Hell can actually have a significant amount of health, because this gives an additional 40%, which is nuts. Because if we take, I believe it's 21%. I can't remember. I'm not going to hit them. And then you do a mind link in the Hell. I think with the super, you're not supposed to do a mind link unless you're on your own. But you are supposed to do a mind link with the hell because there's nothing else in slot 10 that's really helpful. And so we just got a 88 millionist tick for first tick, which is insanely good. Considering that the tick is mixed with anchoring the crab and it's not a full 20-minute tick. So we will go ahead and hopefully we'll get a second one, but we're already down to 3 minutes. And the problem is we get one tick and then we're anchoring the next crab and then we're on the next tick. And then we have 5 minutes during the crab where nothing is happening because you're anchoring the next crab, which is rather unfortunate. Do 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 do. Lock him up. I didn't use my thingy-me-doofle, but that's okay. We're not after the utmost speed. We're just after killing the things. We can like play hard and you know use the micro warp drive and make the things do exactly what we want them to do and eke out like a couple extra million isk per payout, but it's just not worth the effort. But yeah, like I said, you just sit here and you do this until the beacon goes down. And we're gonna go ahead and fire at that guy. So again, the Taos hang out really far, and the fighters don't like it because these guys are gonna be like 50 meters apart, and they're gonna do 0 damage until they get closer. And trying to do the micro jump drive, they'll kind of approach and then they'll end up way over here, which is really bad if something spawns over here. So sometimes you end up doing more damage than good, but we could, for example, use the micro warp drive there to make this guy get a little bit closer and kind of try and make it go better. We can use the torpedo off the Templar. Templar are exceptionally good at killing Tau because they get close and then they have really good application. So they're exceptionally good at that task. Let me just, yeah, work on it. The quicker you kill this, the quicker the time goes down, the quicker you get the loot out of your beacon. So we're going to bring it up. And then here is the Moo that I was talking about, the little frigate. And if we wanted to, we could stretch this beacon by leaving this Moo alive. And like I was talking about with stretching the beacons in the last video, you can make more ISK per beacon by stretching the beacon. And that's if you only have like 1 or 2 characters where you can drop beacons, because you do need a capital pilot to do it. Since you're limited to 3 per day, for some people it may be beneficial to stretch the beacons. But if you have a few capital alts, myself I have 3 here, so I can drop 9 beacons added in a day. If I don't stretch them, I'm still going to make a good amount of ISK. But 500 million ISK on a beacon when they take 40 minutes to do is insanely good if you're willing to sit around and grind all day. But being able to do them a little bit quicker, you yield a little bit less per beacon, but you end up with more ISK per hour. So it's kind of like a little trade-off. Do I have more time and less beacons, or do I have less time and more beacons? And you kind of have to make that decision yourself. And as I was saying, this Moo is surprisingly easy to deal with. We're just going to wait a second. And we're going to nuke it. So the Amitats don't do very good damage because, again, it's a frigate. But they do damage. You'll see here in just a second. 0, 120, 110, 110, which is better than the Smart Bomb. And then the Templar will actually do a really good job of actually hitting that thing hard. The one Templar we have. They actually kill it just a little bit faster than the Smart Bomb on the Rev. Torpedoes on a Phoenix will probably kill that the quickest because of actual application and whatnot, and the rate of fire of rapid whatchamacallums. It's really good. Anyways, we got 3 minutes left on the beacon, and it's going swell here. I wanted to say something. Oh, I wanted to talk about the different races of fighters. So the reason that all of my fighters are Amar is really relevant. So I live in drone lands. So the best fighters for general ratting is Amar, because EM damage is best against drones, or drones are weakest to EM damage. So the Amar fighters do EM damage, whereas the Galente fighters do thermal, the Caldari fighters do kinetic, and the Minotaur fighters do explosive. So you can change your damage type with a fight with a super carrier too, and you can do the ideal damage type for your space. So if you're routing, for example, Dreadgrist to Havens with your super, you would want to be doing thermal damage because thermal damage is slightly higher because Glente drones do slightly more damage than Mimitar drones, and they're weakest to thermal. So you would use Glente drones. If you were, say, fighting angels, you would use Mimitar drones because they're weak to explosive. If you're down in Delve, if you're a goon watching this, you're probably going to be using Amar drones. So there's a purpose in PvE for all of the fighters, and they all have their own damage profile, which is in line with their standard drones too. So if you're familiar with like ogres versus prorators or preators, yeah, it's preators and Vespas and Valkyries. If you're familiar with those, the same kind of thing kind of transitions to fighters, where they do the specific damage types, and then also their movement bias is the same too. Their tracking movement and range bias is the same. So it kind of goes across the board the same way, which is pretty nifty to know because drones are fun. And there's one last thing I wanted to talk about here, and that's that in a recent change we had, and maybe I talked about this in the beginning, and I don't remember off the top of my head right now. I'd have to rewatch the video to see. But basically, these NPCs recently got changed a little bit. Their AI was tweaked, and now they do attack your fighters. Whereas before, you could just count on them attacking only your super, and they just didn't touch the fighters, and you could like pretty much just sit here and hit F1. And from my understanding, the first wave now likes to aggress your fighters, and if you warp off or are too far from your fighters, they'll shoot your fighters instead of you. So it really kind of forces you to be here with them so that you can pull them in, if that makes sense. Because they do get aggression, and the second they go yellow box, you got to pull them in or you're losing a fighter. And a fighter is worth 30 million ISK. It sounds cheap when you're getting 80 million ISK ticks, but if you frequently lose your fighters, you are going to be paying a pretty high tax on your income, which is really unfortunate. So it is a very good idea to babysit and watch the fighters so that you don't end up with dead or upset fighters, because they're expensive. They're not cheap. I don't have a character in G to show you how expensive they are, but my cargo bay is worth 1.1 billion ISK, and that's just these boys here, not the boys in my tubes. Yeah, they're not cheap. And then another note is you can't completely fill up your fighter hangar. And I know this is just filled with random information about flying carriers. With regular carriers, you can get a little bit closer to full, but you want to be able to unload your bays and swap quickly. So you want to like think about the flights that you have and think about how you're going to swap them around as you fly in combat or different situations. Because when I switch over, I can pull out 2 flights of Amitats at a time, and then my bay will be full if I just pull out the 2 Amitats, and then I start loading up I start loading the bays with the anti-caps, and then I pull out the other 2. So it's not something that happens instantaneously, and you have to be able to kind of juggle your fighters a little bit, and practicing that is good, so that you can quickly change. And I'll show you a swap here as soon as the crab expires, which we have 1 minute and 13 seconds here. Because you pull them in and they will reload. So if you use your AoE bombs, and these AoE bombs are fun. I love throwing them. They throw them pretty good. I'll throw that bomb there. So I selected fighter number 1. It should blow up in about the area I asked it to. I got 2 blues in system. Where's your bomb at? You threw it. Where's it at? Oh, it's gonna blow up, I'm sure. He threw it. I don't. Oh, there it is. There was the explosion. It's hard to track them sometimes, but the AOE fighters can throw their bombs like out of stealth bombers. They do roughly 300 damage each, and if you're good with them, you can use them to clear stuff in havens and hordes. It takes a little bit of practice to use them correctly. Each fighter will throw them if you have them all throw it at the same time, they'll kind of throw them in a ball the same. So you really want to throw them one at a time to get them exactly where you want them. So with a little bit of micromanagement, you can really make these things do some cool things. But it does take a little bit of practice to use the unguided bombs. And I'm not very good at it yet. I can kind of like target a spot, and then it uses the Q key. So he'll go ahead and throw. So see, he's throwing that bomb in that direction. It should land about where it is. There you go. It's a micro electron bomb. It's gonna do EM damage, and it should land about where I told it to, which is kind of cool. Oh, I hit my own Amitat and did 29% damage to it. So you do got to be careful of that, right? Because I just hit my Amitat for 600 damage. Oof. Let's put them back in motion. So it kind of went the direction from where they were. Like I said, it takes a little bit of practice to fly your bombers in such a way that you can effectively use that tool. And it's worth practicing and understanding, just playing with the mechanic, rather than just saying, you know, I don't know how to use that, because it is a tool in your little arsenal of tools that could be theoretically helpful. Anyways, we got 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just like the Revelation, we're going to hang out for 2 minutes here and see if more stuff spawns. It looks like it does. This one got 265 out of it, which is kind of nice. It's not a crazy spawn, but it's not like the best spawn. We want to kill this group here as kind of a wrap up. And I just love the damage these things do. Hells are insanely effective at this job, and I'm getting uncomfortable with these renters coming in and out of my space here. Is the military index gone up? Yeah, it has been. Probably have a lot of sites in the system now. Actually not. Surprised. Anyways, Nu will go down, and then Theta is next. The bounties on these are just insane, and I wasn't here for 40 minutes, so I'm not going to get a second tick. And yeah. So we kill these guys. It's very unlikely another NPC will come in. And then I will show you guys a fighter swap real quick, because I did kind of tease that. Bring this guy in with the micro warp drive. And they're numbered based on the tube number here. You see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I wanted to swap, I would go... I know I just flashed my stuff, but I pull these two, right? And then the Malice goes out, and you see how my hanger's getting full. I want to swap this guy, do the same thing. And that's still refueling, so I can't swap him yet. Pull them out, throw the Malice in, and it just kind of takes a second to reload. And just kind of knowing how things work is nice. Like I said, if you're new to super flying or new to carrier flying, I would really recommend playing with this a little bit and understanding exactly how it works. It's really simple. It's not that complicated, but it's something that I would take some time to understand if I was a new carrier pilot. Definitely do play with the controls of the fighters. Definitely do all that. And on that note, my beacon is done. We've made some iskies, and I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below. If you want to see another specific ship for this, do comment what ship. I do plan on getting all 4 dreads. I do not plan on buying 4 supers. But yeah, I've been really enjoying doing these scraps, and I've also been enjoying living out in Nullsec and playing with these toys. It has been a blast. So you guys make sure you fly fun, enjoy your time in EVE Online, continue bringing each other up, and I'll see you in the next one.